Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the South Burlington Development Review Board for Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. My name is Dawn Philibert. I'm chair of the DRB, and with me are fellow board members I'd like to introduce. Charlie Johnston, Quinn Mann, Frank Kochman, Jody Lesko, John Muscatelli, Mark Baer, and to my right, our staff, wonderful staff, I might add, Marla Keene and Marty Gillis. Thank you for joining us. This meeting is being recorded. There are several ways to participate in this hearing or this meeting. One is to be here in person, as some of you are, and if you are here in person, please make sure you sign in the sign-up sheet at the back of the room to document your participation. If you're attending virtually, which some people are, it's important that you register your participation by putting your contact information in the chat box online, so we have a record of your participation. And if you're joining us by phone, please email your contact information to mkene@southburlingtonvt.gov. That's Marla, and that will give us, again, documentation of your participation. So, this still says low battery. Are we sure it's plugged in? It's turned on? Yeah, okay, thanks. So, first item on the agenda is the procedure for emergency evacuation. There are doors in the back of each side of the auditorium. In the event of an emergency, you would exit those doors, turn right or left, and you would be outside. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes in the order of agenda items? No. Okay. Are there any announcements or reminders? None from me. Any announcements or reminders? Okay. And are there any comments and questions from the public that are not related to the specific agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to our first agenda item. And that is a presentation by the amended land development regulations by Paul Connor, our Director of Planning. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, folks. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Last time I saw you was in Montreal, I think.
That is true.
I was walking down the street with a group of people going to dinner, and I heard someone call my name, and I turned around, and it was Paul and his family. Yeah, small world.
Very small world. So, hi everybody. Paul Connor, Director of Planning and Zoning. Thanks for giving a few minutes to me to chat this evening. I know you got a presentation not very long ago from Kelsey Peterson, our Senior City Planner, going into some of the details of the regulations. I'm not going to retread what she talked about, but I'm going to Marla and Marty asked me to come in and talk with you a little bit about the context of the regulations and what the Planning Commission and Council were after, sort of big picture, to frame future discussions. So I'm not talking about any particular application tonight. I'm really just talking about sort of the framing of what the Council and Planning Commission were seeking to achieve through our recently adopted city plan and now these amendments to the regulations. So first,
could you pull your microphone a little closer to you, please?
Sure can.
Hear every word.
All right.
Thanks.
Sounds
Much
good.
better.
So I'm going to speak on 4 topics very lightly, on the topics of conservation and land zone for development. I'm going to speak about simplification in areas where where infill is possible. I'm going to speak about streamlining process, and I'm going to speak about sort of the connectivity of it all, transportation, and then how the dots fit together. So on the conservation and areas where development is enabled, the regulations over the last few years have taken steps to make more clear what are areas that are slated for primarily conservation, and what are areas where various forms of infill activity and development are warranted, acceptable, etc. And the biggest thing in here, driven both by our city plan and by the Act 47 and Act 181 that were passed by the legislature, is drawing a more clear divide about where water and sewer can be expanded in our city. So this past summer, the City Council adopted amendments to both the water ordinance and the sewer ordinance, and created in those, for the first ever time, water and sewer service areas. Those align to the zoning districts and the natural resources overlays, specifically the habitat blocks and the floodplains, so that the areas that are in the habitat blocks and floodplains, and the areas in the natural resource protection zoning district are areas where expansions to the water and sewer service system are not permitted, and meanwhile everywhere else are areas where it is acceptable to extend the water and sewer service. So that provides some clarity that was perhaps not present before. There is one exception to that, and if it comes up, you'll learn about it, which is that I think you've seen one application in the past where somebody has proposed to shift the location of some of the habitat block, so that it's called the habitat block exchange. In that instance, if it qualifies, then the council is authorized to match the water and sewer to the decision you make. But other than that, it's intended to be more clear on process all around. On the infill side, Kelsey talked about this pretty extensively, but in our existing neighborhoods, a lot of simplification has been done to make it easier to do infill projects, have one consistent regulation, and so I think 8 different zoning districts became just together the low scale neighborhood districts, so we don't have multitudes. For those who've been on the board for a while and have seen applications, you might have known that in the previous R4 district, even there were essentially 2 sets of rules for properties that existed before 1974 and after 1974, had different setbacks and different lot coverages. That's all been eliminated to just make it a lot more clear for property owners and for yourselves of one set of rules that apply for all those. Alongside it, as Kelsey talked about, we've had in the past dual standards of both density as calculated by units per acre and lot sizes. To streamline and simplify that and match the state law, we've eliminated, as you know, the maximum densities, so it just goes by lot sizes and building types and the connection between those two. So hopefully that results in a lot more clarity for everybody, yourselves, applicants, and others. Streamlining of process. So we got feedback that the master plan, the subdivision, the PUD standards were pretty process heavy previously. There was a lot of text that was sort of setting things up, frankly, for later review, and we worked very closely with Marty and Marla to just simplify that a lot. Hopefully what you will see are less long sets of staff notes, because we don't have to be saying the same thing over and over, so it's efficient to your time. It's also a lot more clear to applicants. The functionally, it doesn't change too much in just the process, but it is hopefully a lot faster for everybody to get through it. And then the fourth thing, which I know Kelsey didn't speak too much about, but I think is important to sort of seat how this all connects, is transportation. So we've done a couple of pretty substantial changes to the transportation standards. For those who've reviewed projects along Shelburne Road and Williston Road, we used to have something called a traffic overlay district, which provided a hard cap of the total number of PM peak hour vehicle trips, and then it was a complicated, what was the previous use on the property? Could somebody gain additional trips by making improvements, but they'd have to go back to the mathematical number. There was a lot of process to it, and fundamentally, what was happening was it was placing a dampening effect on investment in the areas that the city plan says these are the areas where we want to see investment in infill, like Shelburne Road and Williston Road. So that's been removed in its entirety. It doesn't exist anymore. It's been replaced by a couple of different standards. One is to install a transportation demand management standard. So this means, depending on the scale of the project, and it starts at a project that adds 25 trips and then it goes up from there, a proportion of the total vehicle trips that are created as PMP trips need to be offset by actions that the applicant proposes to do, like installing, there's a minimum requirement already for, let's say, bike racks. There's a point system that you can encourage modal shift away from single occupancy vehicles. So you could put shelter over the bike rack like exists here at City Hall, or you could make space for electric bikes. You could place your open space on your property sort of in a place that is near a transit stop, if you happen to be near one. You can just build, the thing that gives you the most points is just doing development where there is transit service, because that in and of itself is the strongest tool we can wield, which is just build along the areas that are regularly served. So you'll start to see that in some projects coming forward. The second piece of that puzzle is a little bit of an adjustment to the way we account for traffic generally. So you have in the past had a standard that was a level of service standard. It's called level of service D, and it meant that if there's more than a certain amount of congestion at any given intersection, then the applicant has to propose how they're going to mitigate that. Typically, this comes up in much larger projects. The things that we have done is, one, created more clarity about when a traffic study is needed in those instances. So we modeled our work after what the State Agency of Transportation does in terms of the number of trips at any given intersection being added. So that creates a lot more clarity for applicants. The second is that in our core areas, of City Center, we've actually changed the level of service down to a level of service E, which means a little bit more congestion is acceptable. Downtowns are not intended to have cars being able to get through them really fast. They're intended to allow people using a lot of different modes of transportation to have equal standing. So that's created in there. The third piece of it is to provide greater guidance to applicants and then yourselves of if an improvement is needed. So let's say an intersection has tripped its the total number of trips. What are they supposed to do about it? And I know this is something the board has wrestled with in the past and given guidance on various projects, larger ones, of, are they supposed to widen the intersection? Are they supposed to create more lanes? What are they supposed to do? And so there's now a series of improvements that they're supposed to move towards. So how can they shift the vehicle trips to other modes of transportation? Can investing in identified projects on our official map of whether it's roadways or bike paths, at the very bottom of the list are intersection improvements. So it's intended to give a ranked order priority of how transportation improvements should be made so that you're not in a position of having to sort of guess what the city policy is on that. At the very bottom of this list, after this rank 1 through 7, there is or whatever the number is, there is the ability for the board to say, in a common sense situation where something else makes more sense, you are still empowered to do that, but this is intended to be guidance for you. So, connecting all these dots together, I think the most significant part of the conversation at the Council and Planning Commission level was how to think about the remaining greenfield land. So through our comprehensive plan work, through the city plan work, we identified, how much land is largely built but has plenty of opportunity for infill. What land has been essentially identified for conservation in one form or another, and then what's the middle part where it is zoned to allow for or planned to allow for some development. That's a very small piece of the puzzle. We looked at parcels that were over 4 acres in size. Of those parcels over 4 acres in size, only about 6 or 7% of the total land area of the city falls into that category of unbuilt and zoned to allow for development. So in the future, there are a handful of larger properties remaining. Most of what you're going to be seeing are going to be either smaller properties, 2-3 acres, and a lot of infill reinvestment in areas, projects that you've been seeing the last couple of years. You're not going to be seeing that many, though there are a few, and they're, we'll all know them when they come, larger properties. These larger properties, of which there's 15 or so, was a source of a fair amount of discussion about how to plan for those, how to manage those. There's sort of a natural tension here with these in terms of one view of these lands is that they are owned by or may be owned by somebody who's looking to do a significant investment to build a future neighborhood. There can also be circumstances where it is a family that owns a piece of land and they are thinking about having a few homes for the next generation or for, to pay off, fund their retirement or whatever it might be. These are the motivations behind those can be very, very different. Ultimately, as we all know, land development regulations are neutral to ownership, but the motivations can be very different behind them. And so the Planning Commission and Council were trying to find how do we account for this, these different motivations and result in a efficient use of land, knowing how little of our land area is greenfield, knowing that we have, as the city plan identifies, major policy goals of addressing climate change, of meeting a housing crisis, of creating high quality jobs, and this is a push and pull of policy. So in the regulations that you see, there are some components that sort of try to address this tension, and then there's work that you all will have. So, for example, similar to the last set of regulations, large properties can do a one-time carve-out of up to 2 acres that exempts them from their master plan, which also exempts them from dealing anything to do with minimum densities or anything like that. So that's trying to be an acknowledgement that if somebody's trying to do something small with their property, that they can do that without the as heavy an investment in engineering and design as otherwise might be. So that's one component. A second component that the council spent a lot of time with was what happens if somebody wants to do a project on a portion of their property but not all of it. The one approach would be to say master plan the whole thing. That was what was presented to them initially. The council expressed interest in allowing for a little more flexibility in that. And so what ultimately got adopted, and the amendments were adopted unanimously, was an allowance for a property to essentially set a, designate a portion of the land in their master plan as not for, essentially reserved for future use, I believe is the exact words. In that instance, for that land, what is provided to the applicant to make sure that it's still being, the land is still being thoughtfully laid out so that you're not precluding future decisions, is a requirement that do bubble diagram work to identify, where can the infrastructure be like a roadway and what are reasonable areas of development without going into the detail of even master plan level design. So that's where the council landed on that. Where I think that you're going to see applications in the future that are going to be I think some of the more challenging ones you're going to see in the future are the regulations do require planning for a minimum density. For properties of over 2 acres, it's 4 units an acre. Under Act 47, that's not especially hard to demonstrate because any lot can have up to a fourplex on it, so it's not that hard to demonstrate that. That said, not everybody is envisioning in the short term a full development of their property. That's a tension against a city policy and city goals to make sure that we're using efficient use of our land. And so I think you've seen some examples of these in recent years. You'll see some more examples in the future where something on paper can exist and they can pursue it that is, lower density generally. And also a lot of the parts of the regulations are set up to for success with a little bit more density. So for example, there are street infrastructure requirements, block sizes, and things like putting sidewalks in, which are high quality of life. Smaller blocks and sidewalks cost money. Those can be challenges for folks to make pencil out well with a lower density. That's a tension that you will see some of. And I think I wrote a letter this past spring on one conceptual project to just sort of identify for you, as an applicant was asking for some leniency early on some parts of the design, what that might mean for you as you go further down the funnel in terms of the review of the detailed items. And so I think, one thing that I would encourage you all to do, as you're already do, but just making sure that you continue in the future, is when properties come in for the sketch plan application, to give them as much early guidance about potential yellow flags for them as they get further and further into the process. And that if something is identified to you early on as being, this is going to be a challenge to make pencil out, or to, if you design it this way, it's going to, be very difficult later on to, put your open space in or make the pedestrian standards work, to be as communicative upfront as you can with them, so that when it gets to when it gets later in the process, that you're not in a sort of backed into a corner position of having standards that are really difficult to reconcile with the project at that time. So I don't think that this is anything brand new, but it is something that Marla and Marty thought it would be helpful for me to come and just speak to a little bit about the goals of allowing compact development. The city has, two big objectives as it relates to land use and housing, which is compact housing, meet our housing crisis, and conserve land, as we said at the beginning. And how do we achieve both to the success of our community? So that's really what I wanted to speak to today.
Great.
I threw
Paul,
both a lot at you and very little at you in terms of concrete things. So,
are you willing to accept any questions from the
please,
council?
Of course.
I mean, from the board?
Either one.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I have a couple. They're maybe not directly on point, but raised by your recitation. It sounds like there's a general well, first of all, I have just a factual update question. I know there is or has been in suit there's a Davis lawsuit that was seeking to find restrictions on their development unconstitutional. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. Would you like an update on that?
What's the status of that litigation?
Yep. So the district, the federal judge, and then the District Court of Appeals both found that essentially that the applicant, it was premature. It was not ripe because there had not been an application submitted under the new regulations to determine if the takens. Before
their plans were sufficiently concrete, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So that was, I'm not an attorney, but in a brief one-sentence summary, that was the finding. The property owners made a request to the Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court, to take it up. We learned last month that the Supreme Court declined to take it up.
Okay.
So therefore, the decision stands that it was not ripe. So it has not settled the subject of whether there is a takings or not, because the finding was it was unripe. So right now there's no current status of it, other than that was the determination that it was unripe at that time.
I have another question. It sounds like the drift, not the drift, the focus of the new regulations are to continue the tendency toward increasing concentration and minimal parking. You know, that's an old bugbear of mine. With no, and therefore what you're saying is greater downtown density in the service of conservation of outlying land. Essentially, that's the schematic, right? That's the concept.
I wouldn't characterize it as in the service of. I would say meeting two equally important goals. But,
Okay.
I mean, it's not my words. I'm sharing what
You
I
were
hear.
sharing. Okay, I understand. There's a political way to put it, and then there's just a straightforward way to put it. But what I'm getting to is, my question is this: does the city take into account public transportation? I realize it has never exerted direct control over any public transportation, but where does public transportation come into play? Do you take it into account? Do you participate in regional efforts? What's going on with public transportation, which is terrible, right?
I think from the City Council's perspective, the Planning Commission's perspective, the City Plan's perspective, public transportation is a critical component of how people move around, and it's a struggle. It's a challenging time right now with the service cuts that are being presented. What our city manager and our City Council did this summer was, knowing that our partners at Green Mountain Transit were facing the fiscal cliff and were going to be announcing service cuts, was to try to take this moment and talk about the future, plan for the future of how do we make a more resilient transit system. And so we worked with a consultant, we worked with Green Mountain Transit, we worked with our neighboring communities in Shelburne and Williston, and the City Council has recommended for as soon as humanly possible in the near future to actually build a replacement transit service line that would connect the Shelburne Road corridor to City Center up to UVM and UVM Medical Center.
This is a recommendation. This is not a recommendation that the city take on any of this. It's a recommendation that they encourage this to happen regionally.
They encourage it to happen regionally. Also, the city is a substantial contributor to Green Mountain Transit. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of $650,000 out of our budget each year goes to support transit. So, yes, it's them. This was as a partner talking about how do we build resiliency by having a new transit service that is building the spider web essentially, rather than having tentacles out, to have more successful routes that are more frequently used, which then make it more fiscally long-term sustainable and viable and serve more people. So that's the way that they're trying to go at this. There's more beyond that, but we wanted to start with one route that made sense to build resiliency over time, rather than the current situation, which is really difficult, of cutting tends to beget cuts in transit, which doesn't serve the population. So how do we take this moment and look to a positive future, knowing where the shape of development has changed in our community in the last 20 years, and the transit routes have not.
So is it a fair summary to say the focus, such as it is small? That is, it's again focused on the center, and Shelburne Road to Williston Road, for example, not not outlying sections of Dorset Street to downtown.
In terms of building a resilient system, the number one identified gap in our system in the last couple of city plans has been that folks who live on the Shelburne Road side of town have no way to get to the Williston
No,
Road
I
side of
understand the desirability.
Right.
I understand and applaud the desirability of that feature. What I'm saying is, basically, you're turning your back on the outlying areas as a point of focus.
So the study looked at other routes that can build from this success of starting with where do we maximize, knowing that what's happening right now is there's a fiscal cliff. How do we help build out of it through interior connections in the web to make the transit system financially stronger, and then work towards other parts of the community that are not as financially successful today.
Down the list is the answer.
Down the list.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Paul? I have a question. So this is related to, it's a process question. The amended regulations are online. Will we be getting hard copies of them?
That's not, if you would like them, we're happy to.
Yes.
You more than anybody else in our community spend time with them. So if you would like them, we will make them for you.
Okay. How many people here would like a new set of hard copy? Frank, I know. Frank? Jody? I would, please.
Okay.
And anyone else?
We can do
It's
that.
kind of split by, maybe not you, Jody, but generations, but okay, good. So if that's possible, that would be great. I find it easier sometimes to look at the hard copy, but.
One thing that I don't think that Kelsey spoke about, but I know she's excited about, we're excited about, is that in this round of amendments, her work led us to the regulations being 50 pages shorter.
Yes,
which
I've
is,
heard that.
You know, and we will strive to continue to go in that direction. So
Good. You're using a smaller font, right?
same font size, same margins,
Okay, Paul, thank you so much. Yeah.
same page size.
Thank you so much for coming and
Thank you for having me, and I don't get a ton of opportunities to be in front of you, so I just wanted to take 10 seconds and say how much we really appreciate all of your dedication, all of your hard work. You do incredible work for our community, and we just really appreciate it. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good community to do work for, right? Because of all of you. Thanks, Paul. Okay. Next agenda item, number 6. Conditional use application CU 2407 of Cosentino and Manning to amend a previously approved conditional use approval for a single-family home. The amendment is to increase the amount of the building that is proposed to be set back less than 5 feet from the side lot line at 11 White Place. And I have a question, Marla. Is this, do we close this if we feel we have enough information? Or Marty, okay.
Yeah.
There's no next step. Okay, no next.
Correct.
Good evening. Would you please introduce yourself? And I will swear you in after that.
I'm Ryan Manning.
What's your first name, please?
Ryan.
Ryan, that's right. Yep.
And I'm Maddie's Manning.
Maddie?
Maddie's.
Maddie's.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, welcome again. Please raise your right hand. Are you the only people who will be testifying?
We have Missa online as well. She's our architect.
Okay, what is her name again?
Missa?
Missa, okay. Thank you. Would the two of you and Missa please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Okay, so you've had a chance to read the staff report, and I think there's 3. So I'm out of power. I don't understand that. Okay, thank you. Okay. The staff report is fairly brief. So, I just have my comments written. That's the, so if we can go through, Marla, was it plugged in and turned on?
It's now fixed.
It's fixed.
Thank you, because I don't.
Problem solved.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you. I still don't have mine in front of me. So if we could please move to the first staff comment.
Do you want to let them introduce what they're doing?
Sure. I mean, we've seen you before. This is a different slightly different application. Do you have any comments you'd like us to hear before we go through the report?
I think the only thing, different from what we're doing now is we had to kind of downsize a little bit as far as what we were looking to amend for accessibility for me in the house. So
Okay.
some things remain the same. A few of the other things we kind of brought in for budget reasons. So
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Okay. Okay. Comment number one essentially says move on to comment number two. And comment number two is about approving the 2 foot 8 inch setback, which is actually less than the existing setback. So let me read the comment. Staff recommends that the board discuss whether to approve the proposed side yard setback of 2 feet 8 inches on the east side of the lot as a reduction of an existing nonconformity. So the staff notes list some of the regulations that determine when this is a problem, and I will say that I don't have any problem with this, but I'd like to hear from other board members. We're talking about the east side of the property. Other board members.
Side, right?
Pardon?
Driveway side.
correct.
Yes.
So just so I understand, basically right now the existing garage is a nonconformity. The proposed change to the building will also be a nonconformity, but less of a nonconformity.
Okay.
But because it's closer than the 3 foot threshold that is allowable, like we have to make a decision about whether or not we're going to allow that. Okay. Make sure I understood where we were.
You didn't see this before.
No,
Right.
yeah, I'm new here.
I guess I have a question for Marty and then either the applicant or Missa. Are we allowed to approve a 2 foot 8 setback when 3 foot is the minimum?
yeah, so in a reduction of a non-conformity, for example, if there was a property with 80% lot coverage and the standard is 70% lot coverage and they come in for a site plan amendment and they reduce their lot coverage by 5% from 80 to 75, the board is allowed to say you've made progress in the right direction and therefore this is okay. If you came in like out of the blue with this project, where you would have to say no because you exceed lot coverage, but because you've reduced the nonconformity, it's permissible.
Okay.
Thank you.
I also wanted to add, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 2'8" in the front, and then 3'1" in the back. So it varies along that side because it's not parallel to the property line.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Because I don't think our site plan has those dimensions, does it?
It's in the report.
Okay, but I'm just saying the site plan. So I'm only going to raise this because you kind of opened it with your memo to us with the distance separation between lot lines. If you're below 3 feet, you're not permitted to have any operable area within that side of the structure. You have to be over 3 feet, at which point you're allowed 15%. You're basically, but you're showing elevations which has windows in that elevation. So
Correct in the areas that are beyond the 3 feet.
So what part of the areas are beyond the 3 feet? Because it's not we have nothing here to show where the 3 feet is.
You're right. The site plan could be clearer in depicting that 3 feet, but the 3 feet. So the windows happen on the further back. So towards the front of the house, towards the garage is the 2'8", and as you move back to the back portion, it's 3'1".
Okay. Okay. It's just, I mean, it's kind of right on the threshold, but if you're the architect and you're stamping it, well, single family, you're not stamping them. So,
Yeah, I would want to verify that closer window to the front on the upper, but that's the only one that I would put into question.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments about this?
Sorry, I'm going to jump in. This is Marty's application, but Mark, you remember the CATS application in Queen City Park where the board required them to set back the second floor because the first floor was a reduction of a nonconformity, but the second floor was a new nonconformity.
Right.
Was the existing garage 1 story that's closer to the lot line than? So is the second?
Correct.
Is the second floor then an expansion of nonconformity by being closer than the 1-story garage?
Well, was that municipal code or was that Queen City code?
It was the same regulation that applies here.
Okay.
It was
But-
pre-existing lots under 7,500 square feet.
So if they were to if the whole addition was 3 feet 1 inch, they wouldn't have any issues because
That's allowed.
right.
It's that it's less than 3 feet.
Right.
The
See, I
mass
think-
of it is greater than the
Right.
mass of the
I
floor.
guess the discussion point Marla's raising and I'm kind of raising is you're so close to that 3 foot allowable threshold, both municipal code as well as building code for protected openings and, fire code. Is there any way to do this at 3 foot 1 inch so you don't have to worry about the second floor being you're going to have to basically show that the second floor is at the 3 foot line when it's probably inches away, so it's going to look really odd to have to step it a couple inches.
Is that a question for Nissa?
Yeah, it's a question and statement because I think you're going to have the second floor because the original garage was non-conforming, but it was 1 story. Now you're better than non-conforming, but still not to code because it's closer than 3 feet. We're allowed.
Yeah,
to
I
be
hear I hear the sticking point being the 3 feet, and if the Mannings agree, then the 3 foot threshold we could adjust it so it was a 3 foot threshold, so that way the second story didn't have to jog in.
Okay.
I think if you're adding a story, if I understand the situation, you're adding a non-conforming story, right?
Correct.
I think there's case law that says to call that a reduction to close one eye and call it a reduction in the nonconformity is to impermissibly play with words, and I think the court will hold that that's an expansion of the nonconformity, not a reduction of the nonconformity. It's the volume that counts, not the inches.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. If you just bring it out to the 3 foot line, it clears this whole.
Correct.
So
Correct,
let me
yeah.
just ask Ryan and, I'm sorry, Matisse? Matisse, thank you. Are you, if this becomes a condition of approval, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to the west. Number 3 addresses the west. And so I have a question. I'm going to read it first. Staff recommends the board discuss whether the height and location of the encroachment on the west side of the existing building will have an undue adverse effect on the views or sunlight access enjoyed by the adjoining property to the west. How should we know that? Marty?
Sure. I suppose via testimony from the applicant, the submitted materials from the applicant, and then any other sort of questions you might have or any other supplemental materials you might ask for to make your decision with more data if you need or want that.
And probably the neighbors testifying if they choose to.
Sure.
Okay.
And I should note that, so I wrote this sort of staff comment, and all articles A through D of the conditional use apply to both conditional uses, both the west and the east side. And I just referenced the west here, sort of thinking that the east was a reduction of a nonconformity and therefore, maybe not subject to, but they are both the west and the east side are subject to the conditional use standards. So I just used only the west language because I had addressed the east above, but that was sort of improper phrasing. So
Okay.
it should be both west and east as you consider these criteria.
So questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, it's not clear to me where the issue of adverse effect of any extent of sunlight or impairment of sunlight comes from. How does that become a consideration?
Isn't that under one above?
Is it?
It's a conditional use criterion.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Frank. Any other questions about this that we need, that board members feel they need to have answered to enable them to make a decision?
One thing I'm just trying to sort out, I remember you coming in front of us before, but I can't say I remember the details of the original application. And I see there's one sheet in here that has the approved plan. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around, it looks like the new plan, the old plan was conforming and didn't have an issue on the side setback, and now the new plan is less than 5 feet? Because the drawing doesn't specifically say that. It shows the staircase, I guess going down to the basement or up onto the deck, I'm not sure what that is, as being 3 feet 11 and a quarter. But the building itself looks like it's set back pretty far. Now it looks like the entire side of the building is coming in to a nonconformance.
I can speak to that. So the west side addition, so there's a smaller addition in the back that originally was to be removed, and that is now remaining. So that changed the design layout. So we did more of the addition on so the second floor is really just over the main house, the original main house, and now to the west and the east. There's no longer a larger addition to the back as the original application was showing on the second floor. So the way in which we redesigned was to keep that 1-story portion in the back of the house, and make more room to the east and to the west, if that makes sense. So it was non-conforming to the east before, it wasn't to the west, and it is now with the new application to the west.
Okay.
As well.
Do you know if your neighbors to that side are here ready? Thank you. I just want to make sure, because that's a lot of volume coming at them, and I would feel much better about approving it if your neighbors said that they were good with that. Thank you.
Just to clarify, just to jump in, it's not the whole addition, right? It's just the 2 linear feet of, or I guess the volume of the 2 feet by the height. So it's less, yeah. So that's specifically does that 2 foot wide by 20 foot long section impact sound right?
There's a lot more house coming at them.
Right, but there's a lot more house in general. As a percentage of the existing house,
it's not the entire, it's just this 2 foot little bit of strip. If she had, sorry, Miss had set it back 2 feet, right, we didn't have this conversation right now.
Absolutely. But they're asking for the 2 feet, so, because in the back, there isn't a problem with the volume in the back, so.
Okay, are we ready to move on? Oh, wait a minute.
I think if the neighbors have any comments on
Yep,
this.
we're going to get to that. Just before we leave this, I have a question about the next page, D at the top of the page. The statement is the board finds the proposed expansion, this kind of relates to an earlier discussion, Frank, finds the proposed expansion does not impact safety or adjoining properties. when did we find that? Where does
Yeah,
it?
sorry, that's a typo. I wrote this initially as a draft decision,
I see.
and then I
Okay.
transferred it over to a staff comment, and I must have missed one. So it should now read, staff considers that the proposed expansion does not
All right.
impact safety of adjoining properties.
Thank you. So I think that's it for reviewing the staff comments. And now I'd like to ask if there are any members of the public who would like to testify. Yes. Would you come up to the podium, please? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Chase, my husband Jim. We've lived at 9 White Place for 46 years. We raised our family here, worked here, coached, you name it. And we've enjoyed our stay, and we hope to stay until we come out in a box. So we have some concerns about the encroachment of the new addition. We just saw these plans recently, coming within 3 feet, I think it is 3 feet 2 inches or whatever it was, of the property line. Our living room is on, if you were looking from that deck towards our house, our living room is right along there. And we have concerns about privacy. We have concerns about noise. We have concerns about the deck, which would literally face into our living room, into our back office. We know that it's important for Maurice and Ryan to have a house that's accessible and usable and a family home. And it's important to us to also have a feeling of security and distance away from our neighbors. Just, we're used to it. We just were wondering in terms of privacy, especially the deck, is something that could face right into our home. That's concerning to us. We're concerned about, again, whether or not we're going to lose these tiny little views that we have going front and back that we've enjoyed. We're concerned about noise. We're not sure what kind of noise is going to come our way, and for them, any noise in our home going their way. And we don't know where the elevator lift is going to be and whether that would offer any noise, added noise to that particular area. Another area that we're concerned about is the elevation of their property is higher than ours. And with construction, naturally, there's going to be some sort of flow of water and soil and debris. And we're a little concerned because we have a garden right along where the property line is. And we would not want to lose that and or end up with more water in our basement than we already have. Those are just concerns we have from living here for such a long time. We don't want to deny them the right to have what they need, but we also have a few things that we need too. And we thought we'd come tonight both in support of them, but also in support of our position as neighbors. To find a happy medium for all of us. It is very disconcerting for us to lose that 5 feet of property line. We both have read the conditional use and understand, but we thought we would just come and voice our opinion and our concerns about how this is going to impact our property of 46 years. Truly to make sure that there will be some sort of reservoir or dam or whatever at the time of construction to abate any kind of washout that would come our way from the elevation. And I'm sure that that can be taken care of. Again, the deck is worrisome to us in terms of privacy. I could see it as being a place to come out and connect with another deck around the back of the house. Other than that, we care about Maurice and we care about Ryan and their family. And we do want what's best for them. And we also want to be able to know that our windows looking out their way is important as their windows looking our way. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you for this testimony, and I know it's probably not easy when you're close to neighbors and whatever. What do you see in terms of the 5 feet? What do you have any recommended solutions to offer?
I think we would be comfortable somewhere around 4 feet and 4.5, maybe 4. The 3 is really close for us. And I understand that needed space for handicap bedroom and bath, but it's uncomfortable for us. And I think we could compromise at 4 feet.
Okay, let me ask the architect, Missa?
Yes.
I'm addressing it to you because you're the architect. I mean, obviously, this is a decision the applicants have to make. What are your thoughts about reducing that from 5 feet to 4 feet?
I think it'd be from
I was reducing it from 3 foot
3'4" to 4 feet. So
Okay,
you're
yes,
talking
all right,
about
I'm
8
sorry.
inches.
Didn't mean to confuse. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a matter of 8 inches. The second floor up there is the bedroom, and there is certain requirements for accessibility needs in terms of the bathroom that is up there. So as much as 8 inches I think does matter up on that second floor. In terms, I wanted to sort of address the other concerns in terms of views and construction and water. So the way in which this addition is designed is the roofs will go to the north and the south. They won't go to the west. So there'll be no additional water that is actually less because their current porch roof does go to the west. So there'll actually be a reduction of what goes to the west from what's currently there. The water from the new will be going to the north and south and be on 11 White Street property. In terms of the gardens, those will not be touched. Those will still be a buffer between the two properties. And I was very careful in terms of minimizing windows to that side for both privacy for Ryan and Marcy and for the neighbor for yourself at 9 White. So that way, that way there is some privacy between the two. So I would be a little more reluctant to take that 8 inches away for that compromise. Just because I know it's already tight up there on the second floor for accessibility needs. And in terms of the elevator is located on the east side, and I don't anticipate any noise issues from that.
Okay, thank you.
And we could do some added landscaping to the west side around the deck if needed to create some privacy.
Dawn,
Yes, please, Mark.
While I'm sympathetic to your situation and I'm hearing Misa's comments about, accessibility, she didn't, there's no floor plans, it's just massing blocking plans. and you have a neighbor, and we're reviewing this under conditional use. That we're not reviewing this under land development regulations for typical setbacks. Typical setback is 5 feet. That's the required setback in this district. You've come in asking for 3'4", which is an encroachment, which is allowed under conditional use review, which one of the criterion is that this addition does not impact the health, wealth, safety, light, and use of your adjoining neighbor. I personally was, upon hearing the comments from the neighbor, was going to say, fix it at 5 feet because you're clearly impacting this adjoining neighbor. She's been very reasonable at saying, can you just go to 4 feet, 8 inches? And I think you need to figure out how to fix it at 4 feet because given the volume that you're coming in at 3 feet and coming up against the adjoining property on a new setback, not making an existing non-conforming better by on the other side where the garage is, you're adding a volume encroaching into your neighbor's setback, your setback. That's just my opinion. I was going to say go to 5 feet and fix it. She's offering 4, which is an 8-inch adjustment to your impact into the already required setback. This is conditional use. It's not a sort of an as-of-right review.
I would just jump in really quick though, Mark, and say it's not it's not that we're reviewing for an impact on sunlight or privacy. It's an undue adverse effect.
And I think we've heard comments, and typically we take the neighbors' opinions, and it's always, most of our things have been in Queen City Park where they're just packed tight to begin with. So.
Sure. I'm just saying that the impact or the effect of a patio or a deck at 5 feet is not something we even get to review.
No.
So it's an extra 13 inches
you wouldn't even
of,
talk
right.
about it.
So I'm saying, but also is an extra 13 inches of deck that much more.
It's the entire house. It's the entire volume of 2-story.
Sure. But yeah.
And I think I was in agreement with the neighbor, and she was quite reasonable at saying go to 4 feet instead of going all the way to the 5.
I'm sorry, Mark.
I would argue that in terms of an undue impact, if I were Catherine and her husband, I would be concerned about resale value and the value of my property. So that is a fairly significant impact. I mean, certainly sympathetic to your needs, but we're trying to be fair to everyone here.
If this was at 5 feet, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Frank, go ahead.
I think there's something about competing consideration, although in the absence of floor plans, it's hard to make the call. But, if I were arguing for the applicants, I'd say, well, we're entitled to a reasonable accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, this is outside the language of the LDR.
Right.
The gentleman's legally entitled to a reasonable accommodation to a disability, but it's sounding to me, in the absence of what you were talking about, a floor plan that shows it's untenable, it's sounding to me like a reasonable accommodation has been offered by the neighbor, and it's something we could adopt and support, absent a compelling showing that it's unreasonable.
Okay. Other comments? Thank you, Frank.
I guess I would ask you. You were in earlier in the year, I believe it was, with a plan that didn't have this issue on the west side, and I'm just curious what drove you to move away from that plan that had already been approved and didn't raise the ire of either of your neighbors.
So the biggest issue was budget. So before the addition went over there's a current addition on the back that went up 2 stories and along the back of the house. So due to, what we got back for estimates on the cost of that, we needed to bring it down. So instead of going up over the back, we made the addition that we had on the side was expanded to what it is currently in the plan.
And then follow up for the architect. And there aren't any reasonable, you haven't come up with any reasonable alternatives to match the budget concerns without requesting the impact on the side setback
So the budget savings. So if you see that the addition in the back there, in the previous plan that was approved, that was being torn down and then built up. In terms of saving on budget and cost, we're keeping that as is, and where we're doing the new floor plan on the east and west, we're building 2 levels above that. So we're sort of we're not demolishing anything but the garage on the existing plan, whereas before we were demolishing that back addition, which doing so, keeping it has put it into budget. I'm happy to also share floor plans if that is something that's needed for review.
Okay, any other questions before I have a question? So where do we go from here? We could close this and.
Yeah, so my recommendation was to close. It seems like you want more information. So if you think you need more information to make a decision, like floor plans, you're welcome to keep the hearing open.
Okay.
If you feel like you have enough information to make a decision, either way you can close.
And is it also fair to ask them to kind of rethink this and sharpen their pencil and see?
I don't think you can check me on this, Marla and Marty, but I don't think we can do both if we want them to reconsider their plan.
I wouldn't close it without.
No, right. You need that's a material, I think 8 inches is a material change.
Yes.
Okay. So do we?
If we don't like it, we should give them a weather report and tell them to come back with something else.
So would we like them to come back with something else?
Well, that'd be my inclination.
Okay.
But I haven't heard, in other words, I haven't heard either from the architect or the applicants a compelling basis for rejecting the neighbor's proposal.
Okay. So I know this is not what you want to hear,
Right.
but we have significant concerns based on the neighbor's testimony. And we're not going to close this tonight. We would like you to meet with your architect, sleep on this, put your heads together, and come back to us with a plan. And maybe suggest that once you've come up with a plan, you talk to your neighbors before you come to us.
Can I add a question?
Sure.
So that the west side, the concern is no adverse effect, and it's really due to sun and views, and I have the ability to show sun pattern throughout the year, and I can model that so that way you can see that there's no adverse effect in terms of sunlight, in terms of existing conditions versus new, if that's something that would appease the neighbor. And I can show the difference between what's currently there in our proposal and moving it 8 inches to meet the 4-foot criteria, to see if that is really important to the neighbor.
I think that would all be helpful. I think that we feel like we need to ask you all to sharpen your pencils a little and come back to us with something, knowing that our concerns and your neighbors' concerns.
Including the floor plans for the second floor,
Right.
showing why you can't, adjust it by 8 inches.
I would just point out at this stage, though, that privacy, noise, resale value are not criteria that we're reviewing that have all been mentioned both by the applicant but then parroted by the board.
Views and privacy go hand in hand.
I agree.
I understand. I'm just saying it's a precedent we as a board in reviewing undue adverse with conditional use criteria. It sets the bar a little higher for conditional use, and we've always set it higher.
One thing I'd like to throw in before is I don't want to make the neighbor the bad guy.
No.
And I don't want.
I was going to come back with 5 feet when I started
Exactly.
hearing some
So
of
was
the
I.
issues. So I think she's being
So
very
yeah,
reasonable.
I don't want the focus to be, we got to convince the neighbor, and then the neighbor will make it all right.
You're convincing the board.
Right,
Yeah,
you're convincing
exactly.
the board. So I just want to make sure. Now, please, ma'am, say whatever it was you were going to say. I just don't want you to feel like this pressure is coming down on you.
Well, I feel that.
No,
But I just wanted to say the original plan was okay.
Right.
There was, I think, 7 feet, if I remember right. You know, we're willing to talk, we're willing to compromise. It's just that it's feeling pretty close right now.
Sure.
And we're kind of gobsmacked that we haven't seen this earlier.
okay.
It's one thing when you have an pre-existing condition in these tight neighborhoods where you've got, pre-zoning regulations, you have your garage at a foot, and you're saying we're making it better. But when you're pushing the envelope and pushing the boundaries on an already tight neighborhood, it is going to have an undue adverse impact.
And as I said, we just wanted to voice our concerns.
Sure.
We
Thank you.
understand conditional use. And if it comes to the point where there isn't a compromise or something, then, we're willing to look at alternatives.
Okay.
But for now, it would just feel a little better to have a little more space.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Okay, we will see you back here again, and good luck.
We
And
have to
thank you.
continue it to a future date. Yeah, we have to pick a date.
Okay.
How long, Lisa, how long do you think you need to review this stuff? And if you're going to not propose any changes, prove to us that there's no adverse impact, or, if you are going to make an 8-inch change, how long do you think you need?
I would probably need a couple weeks. I would like to probably review that 8-inch change with the neighbor prior to coming, and really kind of talk through window placement and landscape and the solar studies, so that way they have a clear understanding of what is being proposed.
Sounds good. So what might be a reasonable date for them to return?
So our meetings are generally bi-weekly, so we could go 1 month out, Missa, if you think that's okay, or if you think you want more time, we could go 6 weeks.
1 month is fine.
Okay, so for that one, we'd probably want your materials submitted to us probably 2 weeks before the meeting date, though. So if we're looking at the 3rd Tuesday in December, that's the 17th. So then we'd want new stuff to us so that we have time to review it and compile a staff report. We'd want that by approximately December 3rd. So that's 2 weeks from today.
Okay.
That's doable?
Yep.
With Thanksgiving in there?
Yep.
And when would the meeting be?
December.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to continue, pardon me, this hearing till the December 17th meeting.
So moved.
A second? Okay, got it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Okay.
Aye. Okay, we will see you back here on the 17th. Have a good Thanksgiving. Okay. We're a little behind the 8 ball, but that was important. Okay. Agenda item number 7. Master Plan Application MP 2404 of the City of Burlington and Burlington International Airport to establish a master plan for an approximately 901.6 acre existing airport complex. The master plan includes 6 projects over 21.8 acres and consists of a 29,234 square foot north concourse expansion, a 4.0 acre multi-use path, an 8.3 acre maintenance complex with 44,000 square feet building, a 1.5 acre apron expansion, a 2.3 acre project involving hangar and apron expansion, and a 25,000 square foot south terminal expansion at 1200 Airport Drive. Thank you. Who is here for the applicants, please?
Larry Lackey, Director of Planning, Engineering, and Sustainability. And,
Thanks, Larry.
And I have our team with architect and permitting.
I'm sorry, speak up, please.
Okay, the rest of the team can introduce themselves.
You're gonna have to bring that in.
Okay, the rest of them can introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Jackie DeJess from EIV Technical
Hi, Jackie.
Services, assisting with permitting. And Katie is handing out our response to staff comments and also the associated plans.
Thanks.
And we have a couple of folks who are joining remotely.
Okay, could you introduce them, please?
We have Stu Moncrief, project engineer. David Ducker and Craig are both architects with Jacobs.
And that's it?
And that,
Okay.
and Katie, yeah.
Okay. Katie, what is your last name? Thank you.
And Craig, what's your last name?
Wrangle.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to swear you in. All raise your right hand, please. Right hands. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Okay, you've introduced yourself. Do you have any opening comments to make before we get into the application and the staff comments?
No, Don, I think you did an overview already, and we've just finished sketch plan.
I'm sorry, Larry, it's really
Okay,
hard
I'm
to
sorry,
hear.
I gotta speak up, yes. We do not have any comments. We just had sketch plan on this, and you just did an overview of the project, so we're satisfied to move forward.
Okay, good. All right,
Don, I have a disclosure.
sure.
Nothing to do with the airport, but I am doing a project through my work with Jacobs. I don't foresee there being any conflicts here, but
Okay.
I imagine they're big enough. They work with lots of different people.
No,
So.
no problem with
And
that.
I'm not working with Craig, so.
Any other disclosures or, okay. Thank you, Mark. All right. Staff comment number one. This is about needing the minutes from the public meeting and the attendance list before closing.
Yes, so we submitted the neighborhood meeting minutes, I think, just after the staff comments were posted. So this was submitted on November 14th.
Okay. And is that something that will be posted for us to review for?
Yeah, I have them in, and we'll post them tomorrow. Jackie, you, when you sent them to me, gave me a couple sentence summary of some of the salient points. That might be helpful so we can kind of keep this moving. If you could kind of say what the points were that the neighbors brought up.
Right, so there was a comment specific to the rec path. And at one location on Elizabeth Street, we had pulled the rec path closer to a single-family home to increase the distance from the intersection. We have since collaborated with DPW from the City of South Burlington to look into some alternatives to pull the rec path back further away from the home. There's also some other alternatives. So they're just looking for some additional privacy in terms of screening or adjustment in the rec path alignment. And Marla, I don't know if you have them handy. There was one other comment. Can't quite remember, but they were all sort of site plan specific. Katie has it.
building being moved further.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes.
I can address that one. There was one comment. We had gone through quite a process with respect to the SRE building and its location, and we were asked to move it as far north as possible. And we responded to that by saying we have, and when we come for site plan for that, we can review that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, moving on to comment number 3. I'm going to read, no, 2. I'm going to read this out loud. A staff recommends the board require the applicant to update the legend to identify the required features by use of a legend, specifically calling out the meaning of each of the yellow, orange, blue, green lines used.
Yep, so we appreciate that. We have an overall context map, and that's included in this package. And we also have project-specific context maps. It gets a little busy. We did include a legend, the overall context map, because we were showing more information, including phasing. And so we have call-outs to the specific line and a legend. And then we included one of the examples for the North Concourse concept map. And what we simply did was we had call-outs to the different lines. So we are happy to add a legend if the board feels that it's necessary, or if the call-outs are clear, we can keep it as is. So we're happy to accommodate whatever works best.
I'll also ask staff, Marla, is this yours? Yeah. Do you think it's necessary to have a legend?
I think with what Jackie explained, that the legend is the same between the overall concept map and the individual concept maps. I think it's okay. That just wasn't clear from the application.
Everyone okay with that? Okay. So I have a question, and I should know the answer to this. The new building that's there that you go through now, that's not part of the master plan? Is
The
that?
terminal integration project that's already been constructed, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I guess. Yeah.
Yep, so that has been completed, and then so doing this second project within a certain period of time is what has triggered the requirement for the master plan. Is that correct, Marla?
Not quite. It's a very subtle difference, but it's multiple phases over multiple years requires a master plan now. So because they have this North Concourse expansion, the maintenance building, the rec path, and then the other couple projects, that's what triggers them doing a master plan. The airport
And
does
it wasn't that wasn't applicable when?
It was not.
Okay,
No.
that's helpful.
And the airport sort of is always doing projects, right? And they have an FAA approved master plan. It's sort of referenced in the associated site plan for the North Concourse expansion. So we were hoping that this would be sort of fitting nicely with that rather than at odds with that. And hopefully you're finding it that way and not too much extra work. But
Right. Okay. Thank you. All right. Number 4. This is about planned capacity.
3.
Number 3, maybe?
3? Oh, sorry. How did I skip 3?
On the same page as 2.
Oh. No, I show.
The resource map.
All right, the resource map. Staff recommends the board consider whether they will require the applicant to show these resources on a map regardless of whether they are impacted by the proposed development plan. My question is, what are the advantages of showing these on a map?
Well, we've done it, and then there's no impact, but go ahead.
Yep, so just maybe confirmation of where the resources are so that you can clearly see that we wouldn't be impacting them as verification. And so in our response, we just included a definition of each so that we had a list that's easy to reference, and then included 2 different natural resources maps, one created through the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources Environmental Atlas, and then the other one using the City of South Burlington data so that we could get as much natural resource information for you as possible.
So we're set on that. Questions? Okay, number 4. This is regarding planned capacity. Staff considers it to be inaccurate for the applicant to represent that the proposed improvements will have no effect on municipal impacts over time and recommends the board discuss with the applicant the planned capacity of the improvements and require them to update their traffic, water, and wastewater projections to accommodate the planned capacity. Before we discuss it as a board, what are your thoughts about that?
We really appreciate this comment and feedback, and we certainly took the time. We just received the comment on Thursday, right? So we definitely took as much time as we could and worked quickly to really lean into this and to get as much information as we could provide. So starting with wastewater allocation, we took existing employment data and did a forecast out over the next 10 years for this master plan. And we met with DPW this morning and discussed the approach to determining the calculation for those allocations. And they use employment data for that calculation.
What kind of data?
Employment data. So that is, what is employment? So that is, and Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, passengers who have purchased a ticket and will be taking a flight out.
Okay, thank you.
It's not deplanements. So we had 660,097 employments last year. For reference, in 2006, we had 690,568 employments. So we are still below that 2006 threshold. The reason why we're referencing and comparing against the 2006 data is because of the Clean Slate Act in terms of wastewater allocation with the state of Vermont, and that was effective January 1st, 2007. So in terms of grandfathered in wastewater allocations, it's based on employment data from that year, and that's referenced with our state wastewater permit. So if we apply the 0.8% forecast of annual increases to the employment data, by 2034, we would have 720,566 employments. So that is an increase above that 690,000 threshold. So we have preliminary already responded. DPW was fantastic in meeting with us today and getting a response, and it's included in this packet. But they have confirmed our existing wastewater allocations and then have given us preliminary approval for the additional 411 gallons per day of additional wastewater allocations that we would require. So we do have that preliminary approval included in this packet. We do not have water allocations approved yet, but that's something that we could turn around rather quickly within the week if that's acceptable. And in looking at the wastewater allocations of 411 gallons per day, it's fairly nominal, and we are not going beyond those 2006 data until 2039. So we still have the next 5 years where we're in compliance with the existing allocations. So we just asked if we could have a little bit of time to provide that data, if that was acceptable.
Okay.
For water, wastewater.
Thank you.
Quick question though, the total allocation for the airport is the 11,820. So your water is probably close to that, and you're saying you're 2,000 below it. Is based on the trips, I guess, right?
Right. So are you looking at?
You have on here. There's a discussion about airport terminal expansion, 6,000, parking garage expansion, 1,500. Is the are you permitted up to 11,820?
Right. That's our current wastewater allocation. Yes, we are permitted up to that. So we're talking about the employment data, which is focused to.
Right. Yeah, and your testimony is we have certain people coming in, and where our flows are way below that, right? So your water is likely below that.
Exactly. Agreed, Charlie. Thank you.
So this comment sort of has three pieces, and I just want to make sure that we also touch on the traffic element.
Yep. So I'm just getting to that.
Would we discuss the traffic element per each project, because things are relative to those specific projects, to where traffic goes? Or
I believe we included some trip data by project, and this was the one where we said that we don't anticipate any trip increases, but now we're receiving staff comments and we're discussing just the North Concourse. Is that correct, Marla?
If you want to get into the North Concourse now or in that hearing when we
Right.
do
So
that next.
the issue here is that the master plan requires a trip budget. It's not on a project by project basis. It's on a master plan level. So the master plan, and you've appropriately given passenger data. Sorry, not passenger data. You've appropriately given anticipated wastewater increase for the master plan as a whole. You've appropriately given wastewater for the master plan as a whole, and you've only given traffic for the projects other than the terminal. But your master plan, your FAA master plan forecasts 0.8% annual increase. And so surely that results in some number of vehicle trips as well. So it seems like a big glaring omission to say, oh, well, we're increasing water and wastewater, be it nominally, but there's no traffic component to this.
I guess to reflect on that, even though we went back to 2006, 2008, there were 759,000 employments, and the level of use for there was no problem with the level of use of the traffic. However, if you take the 0.8% per year, I think if you do a quick calculation, that might be, say, 16 individuals a day, okay? If you take those 16 individuals a day and if they all drove independently, over a 16-hour day, that's one per hour, okay? Looking out 10 years, That's 10 per hour or 160. So when you've got over 2,000 vehicles pulling into the airport a day.
And is that what you're saying, Marla? Would that be helpful if we look out those 10 years and we do the math and it works out to 10 trips per hour between 4 and 6 p.m. for those peak PM trips? Is that helpful?
I mean, it's ultimately the board's decision, but I mean, I think that there's a difference between like, it's going to be fine and showing your work.
All right, we can do that. Okay, so that's what you guys were saying. It's fine. The only response is the airport had no problem handling 757,000 employments in 2008, and we won't see that until.
So this is about municipal impacts, not airport impacts.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So if your projection, if your traffic analysis shows that it's an increase of 2 trips per PM peak hour, that's the impact. That's municipal impact. If it's 0, that's municipal impact. But I think that the omission that staff is identifying is the show your work component.
Okay. I would also say we can do whatever you like, but our peak is between 4 and 6 in the morning, which is not coincide with the city's peak or the
Larry,
peak.
it's
Yeah.
hard to hear
Sorry.
you. Could you
Okay.
bring that in?
So
Thank
what
you.
I'm saying is our peak at the airport is between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. I believe the peak hour from the traffic studies from the state of Vermont and the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission is around 8 or 9 o'clock being peak hour. So we don't touch the peak hours of normal traffic. But we can do whatever we need to do. It's just we'll do whatever you need. But again, we're not adding any more. The next 10 years don't look like they're going to be any more than they've been in the past 30 years.
We just need the numbers. We need to see your calculations.
So, in terms of the show you work, would we take what we have today and just show the difference between now and 10 years from now in terms of the change in the peak PM trips? Does that sound reasonable? And like Larry's saying, based on the number of employments, it won't be a lot, but it'll be something, and we could turn that around fairly quickly.
Makes sense to me. What do you think? Yeah. Okay. That would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's something we can easily respond within the week.
Thank you. Okay. So are we on 5? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, 5. Okay. This is regarding numbering the numbering of sheets. The applicant has included a plan sheet for each phase. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to revise the plans to include a unique sheet numbering and naming for record-keeping purposes. That's easy peasy, I would think.
It is, and thanks so much, Marla, for bringing that to our attention, that we had a few plan sheets that all referenced exhibit. So now they each have their own project name and drawing number so that it can be easily referenced.
Okay. And similarly, we need a time frame for the hangar expansion and south concourse. That's number 6.
Yep, so for the phasing plan, this has been updated to include a construction start date of 2030 for both the South Concourse and the Pratt and Whitney expansion projects.
Okay. Questions? So we've come to the end of the staff questions. Now, we still have your site plan to review tonight. Does it make sense to close the master plan before we look at the site plan?
Given that this data just came in today, I think it'd be prudent to give staff a chance to look at it and make sure. It may be a 5-minute, everything looks great at the next meeting, but I think it'd be good to hold it open.
And are we able to set next meeting right now? Or do we need to?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. How about you make the motion on both at the same time? I think that makes a lot of sense.
And what would be the date?
I think it depends on how much time they need to respond to things. Given this discussion, I don't think it needs to be continued out very far at all. But if there's something that comes up in the next one, it may make sense to see them.
So
for
we'll
both
wait
together.
to make that motion so we can give them a date certain. Okay, good. All right, before we move on, thank you. Are there any public comments about this master plan application? Hearing none, let's table the discussion about next date and go on to the next one. But before we get into that, I would like to declare a 5 to 7 minute bio break.
Okay.
Right. Okay, we're back.
Recording
Thank
in
you for that break.
progress.
All right. We're going to take up, number 8 on the agenda, site plan application SP 2441 of the City of Burlington and Patrick Leahy Burlington International Airport for a portion of the first phase of a concurrent master plan for an existing airport complex. The project consists of demolishing approximately 4,250 square feet of existing concourse and constructing a 29,234 square foot 3-story addition at the north end of the existing terminal building at 1200 Airport Drive. Do we still have the same cast of players?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have to swear them in again?
Probably for the best.
Okay. So here we go again. Raise your right hands, please. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm waiting for someone to say no. What do we do that? Yeah, pardon?
We'll make a quick hearing.
Okay. Before we dive into this project, into this site plan application, are there any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, just a quick one. I mean, we keep using the word expansion. Certainly the floor plan is expanding. However, this is a replacement project. This is a safety project. I mean, if you've gone out that concourse and you've talked to Chief Francis, your fire chief, you know we have to do something about it. And we have the opportunity to do that, so we're doing it. The only expansion is the footprint, and then obviously the consistent with the 0.8% per year that we just spoke about. And
this is the concourse where there's a central waiting area and then you kind of go downhill.
Right, and keep in mind, so what's happening is aircraft used to be what this was built for was 50, 60 seaters.
Right.
Now we don't have 3 of them coming in. We have one 160 seater
Right.
coming in. So keep in mind, you got 160 people going that little hallway getting on a plane, 160 getting off. You've got, and you could have more than one plane there at one time. And if you've ever been down there, this resolves that problem.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
So this is getting rid of that long hallway and just, oh, good. That
Yes,
hallway's-
yes. Everybody's
Yeah.
Passengers like to be near their gate when they're going to take off, and this will take care of that. This will also make your trip from going through TSA to the site. You'll walk the distance looking out at the Green Mountain Range.
Not
the
to
whole
mention,
way.
I'll tell you, they don't make the seating announcements into the main terminal when you're in that little cattle corral.
So we
Yes.
want to improve that, and we have, thanks to Senator Leahy and his staff and the effort they put in, and the airport staff put in, we've raised the money to fix this.
Good. Okay. So, speaking of overview, the first comment by the staff asks that we ask you to walk through the existing and proposed condition plans and elevations and what will be visually different when the project is complete, including both the geographic changes and the exterior finish changes.
So we have included elevation drawings. Also within your packet, you'll have plan sheets, and then it'll get a little smaller. And that shows views from public ways, photos that were recently taken, so you can see the location of where this would be in relation to if you're going along Airport Drive. We also have our design team and architects joining remotely if they wanted to sort of walk through that exterior description.
Also, I'd like to add, consistent with the sketch plan review, this will not be noticeable from Airport Drive. You're going to have to stop and really try to figure out if it's even there. So, but
Yeah, so that was sort of the gist of the stuff from it. Careful, don't
Sorry,
push the
that's
mic.
me, sorry.
You can just turn it off for a second. So it was hard to tell from the provided elevation drawings where the existing building ended and the new building started as visible from the public way. Can you direct us to what sheet to look at and tell us where that transition is?
So when you say from
I think she's talking about plan view.
So like the airport driveway that you would be driving on to go to the parking garage.
Okay, you want me to explain that?
Yeah, that
Okay.
would be great.
So if you,
And if it helps for Jacobs, I can allow you guys to share screen, but you have to promise to behave yourselves.
if you flip to the last page, it shows the new terminal. The last drawing. That.
With the fence at the top, is that?
Jackie, did you
that's the
email
correct
this
one.
to me so I can put it on the screen for those who are attending
Yeah,
remotely?
Stu, can you put that on the screen?
Get a chance, but Stu can.
Sure. Yeah. Let me. Let me share here.
All right, hang on. I haven't let you do it yet. Stand by.
Okay.
And Stu has the full packet electronically too, if that's helpful. That way, if we're jumping around, then he can share remotely.
Let me. Oh, I think the way to do it instead of letting everyone share is to make Stu the co-host, right? Because then we don't have. How do I make him the co-host? Can you do that? I don't have that button. I must be a co-host myself.
I don't understand
Okay.
this.
Do we have swearing in?
No, he was already sworn in.
It's higher level of responsibility.
Oh, okay. Is it good? Okay, Stu, you should be good now.
All right. Let's. I'm going to. Let's see.
Stu, when it comes up, I'll tell you where to point to. And we'll orient you.
So we're talking about the views, right?
No, the
from
plan
airport
view,
to
the
drive.
plan view of the
Yep.
C 3.106 drawing.
Sorry, hold on.
White fence detail is what you called it.
The last one here.
Yeah, the last one.
Okay. Okay. C3.106. Okay,
Yep.
sure. Yep. All right. So this is our site plan.
We don't have your screen
we don't
yet,
see it,
Stu.
Stu.
You have to actually
Stu, oh.
share it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me know if you can see that.
Okay, Stu, can you point to Airport Circle as you, if you're coming from the south? See where his pointer is coming in? Keep going.
Yep. So Airport Circle. Airport Circle is obviously a one-way circulation road that passes in front of the terminal building.
Right.
So you come from plan right along in this direction here to plan
Okay,
left.
they asked where you went into the parking garage, Stu. Stu, hold on. Okay, you turn into the parking garage, right there. Okay. So that's what
Right
was
here.
the question. All right.
Yep. And then we've got the existing passenger walkway that crosses over just to the north of that entrance to the parking garage. And then our the new building is to the east of that and will abut directly against that elevated passenger walkway into the north part of the existing terminal.
So that is the footprint of the building. If you go to the right and up of that new part is where the current walkway extends out that will be removed once this is built, right in
So
there.
from Airport Circle,
Yep.
there's a narrow hallway that extends to the pedestrian bridge.
Correct. That's
And so
the
where is,
skywalk.
and so if I'm on Airport Parkway and I'm looking to the right, I'm going to see this narrow hallway and I won't know that there's a new terminal behind it.
Airport Parkway?
Airport Circle. When I'm on Airport Circle, I'm going to be looking to the right and I won't know that there's new stuff. Where will the new stuff start to appear?
If you went up on the top floor of the parking garage and looked down, you won't be able to see it. You're
Yeah.
going to be so close, and there's already a wall in that skywalk that you're not going to be able to, from a visual standpoint, it's all on the airfield.
Right, but it goes
Yep.
it goes beyond the walkway.
Yeah, that's the question I'm asking.
Oh, okay. Good.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to confuse everybody by showing Google Earth, and this is oriented completely
It's
the
hard
opposite
to hear
direction.
you, I'm sorry. You need to speak
I'm-
up, please.
Does the terminal?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Wait,
So,
let, one at a time. Mark, let's let you go. You're the board.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh. If you're on Airport Circle, you go past the walkway. There's a concrete block wall before you get to the black wrought iron.
Mhm.
Does the terminal basically, is that the outline of the new terminal?
Correct.
Okay. So this
Yep.
is
And that shows
yes.
that.
the street view is the clearest example of the extent of where you're going to get it.
So the green
Yep.
is the new terminal,
Right.
and the existing
Yes.
concrete block wall is the same length as the green.
It's only one floor.
Roughly, yeah, within a foot or two.
Okay,
Yep.
and then elevation-wise, are there additional stories that'll emerge beyond that existing concrete block wall?
Stu, I'll take.
Yeah, I think the block wall is 10, I believe that it's 10 feet tall. So yeah, and we're gonna have this green area here. This is a 2 to 3 story elevation here on the west side. So it's 3 stories to about here where my hand is right now. And then it's 2 stories to the north of that, which is to the right of this view.
Okay.
And so will the final question, will the concrete block wall have any sort of skin changes as part of this project? Or will it?
It will be demolished. Yeah. That's and it might even have already been demolished.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be the exterior wall of the new.
Right, it'll be the building,
I just want to know the extent.
which will not look much different. It'll be the paneling. So, yeah, you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other
So-
any other questions from the board in terms of a general overview? Okay, let's move on to number 2. Will you need, please, to understand what the heights of the existing buildings are?
So we included in the response a list of the total building height and then also other structures nearby and their heights. The total building height for this North Concourse replacement project is 51 feet 8 inches. The north garage is 58 feet in height at the northeast corner. The north garage stairwell is 78 feet. The control tower is 91 feet. The existing terminal varies between 35 and 45 feet, and the old control tower is 45 feet.
And can I add one thing to that? So the second floor elevation is approximately 34 feet, with the third floor being a smaller area on top of that 28,000 square feet that goes up to that additional distance. So the whole building isn't 51 feet or whatever we have here. It's 34 with that smaller portion on top for the office space and the amenity for people to view that they, from what we used to have.
Sorry, not to be obtuse, but I'm going to be the one writing this decision. Which portion of it is only 2 stories? Maybe Stu, if you want to pull that back up again.
Yeah.
Yep, sure.
You made the elevation sheet, Stu, that show the plan view, that show the
Yeah, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go back to Google Earth because that's where I do a lot of my design work. So let me bring that back up, and I've got so we've identified that the green area is the new building footprint, and the blue
Stu,
rectangle
I'm
here
sorry,
that I
it's
just turned-
really hard to hear you.
I'm sorry. So of course we've identified the green area as being the building footprint, our new building footprint. The blue area here that I just turned on, this is going to be the extent of the 3rd level. And that will be airport administrative space with doors to the exterior roof for that exterior roof deck amenity.
Thank you.
Okay. If I switch to PDF here, this is the building elevation. This is the north elevation. So this is standing at the north and looking south towards the new building, and you see the 3rd level there with the sloped roof, and then below that is the 2-story apron level and the new concourse level, which is the 2nd floor, and that, as Larry mentioned, is about 34 to 36 feet high.
Thank you. Any other question about the elevations or the heights of the building? Okay, moving on to number 3. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to provide a proposed conditions site plan to allow evaluation of this and other site-related criterion. I think it should be criteria. But what is a conditions site plan?
Proposed conditions.
Proposed conditions.
I got it. Okay. I got it. Thank you. Anyways, we would like one of those.
Sure.
Sure. So yeah. So what you see on the screen here, this is essentially the same plan that we were just looking at before with the fencing on it. And so this is our. We have very limited amount of site work on the land side of the new building. It's essentially just kind of a pull-out area for the unloading of trucks and wheeling concessions into the northwest corner of the new building. That's really it. There is some fence relocation in that area. Obviously, the building itself is kind of the star of this project. And then to the east of that, we do have a little bit of drainage improvements and also some new concrete parking apron for the new aircraft that will be located in this area.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry. This is the same plan that was submitted originally. And I'm really struggling to read this plan because I think the contours and the utilities just obscure the site layout. So the question here is about pedestrian orientation, and can you clarify what's going on with existing and proposed sidewalks in this plan?
Sure. So the existing sidewalks run right along the east side of Airport Circle, which is directly adjacent to the roadway, and then they turn and they come up towards the building in this area here. So with the work that we're doing, we're basically kind of mimicking that, but sliding it to the east a little bit to accommodate this pull-out area for delivery vehicles. We do have a striped crosswalk here across this little section of driveway, and then continuing along the face of the new building and tying into the existing sidewalk right by where the existing pedestrian bridge connects to the terminal building. So it is important to note that a lot of airport staff park in a parking lot that is to the north, and they actually this is a well-used portion of sidewalk. So it's definitely in the airport's interest, not just for passengers but also for their employees to be able to access the terminal building safely, each day when they come to work.
Thank you.
I have a
Questions?
quick question. So I'm trying to see this, right? And there's a 34 or 38.6% grade. Is there like a hole or a pile or something there? Like what's going on with that?
That is an area where we're gonna probably end up with a short retaining wall.
Okay, just checking.
So, but yeah, but grading down at 34%, that's a 3-to-1 slope. That's doable, but we may clean that up a little bit and put a small retaining wall in there as well.
Yep. And then there's a transformer vault and generate pad. Are these underground vaults or are they above ground?
The vault itself is essentially a concrete kind of foundation. The transformer itself is above ground.
Okay, that's why there's fencing and screening. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Any other questions before we move on?
I'm still having trouble reading this. I'm so sorry.
Sure.
Do you want me to zoom in on a particular area?
You see the little jog, like the steps. Those steps.
Yeah, zoom in. So zoom in where the 7% is right by the garage door. A little bit to your left, right? So you're basically, what you're saying is you've got, I'm going to estimate, because I don't have a scale on me, but this is like a 15% wide driveway, and you're going to have vehicles coming out of here and then crossing this crosswalk and coming back out onto Airport Circle, right? Circle. And you're putting in a new crosswalk and concrete sidewalk for pedestrian traffic.
Yep, correct. Yeah, and I think that is quite a grade there, and I think the reality is not a lot of vehicles are going to be backing up that slope towards that corner of the building. I think most will just stay down in this kind of pull-out area adjacent to Airport Circle rather than actually trying to maneuver into that driveway. But we do have it there. We do have it paved. It is available for a truck to access it directly if it needs to. But I think it won't function like that typically.
Is this a loading dock or is this like a gate to get into the secure area of the?
No, it's just an overhead door, which is right here where my cursor is right now. So it's basically a roll top overhead door. So like say for example, a Coca-Cola truck would pull up. They would load up their dollies, roll it up the hill, and then straight in through that overhead door.
So does the comment start to make sense that we're asking for a layout and materials plan without the grading and utilities, so we can understand what's going on here?
Sure. Yep.
We can do that. Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's move on to 4. We're wanting to see some architectural renderings with some idea of the materials being used. Please.
Okay. Craig, would you like to speak to this?
Sure.
Let me go back to the elevations, Craig.
And so we're talking about here, importantly, from Airport Circle, not the other directions where no one who's a member of the public
Correct.
can see. Okay.
Yeah, and so this is the view from Airport Circle right here on the bottom of the sheet.
So can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is obviously an elevation view of the building. If we're actually truly down at grade, the bulk of what we're going to see here is what's hatched out, which is that pedestrian walk once you cross over Airport Drive. So it's currently curtain wall glazing with a silver insulated metal panel. What you will see on the left side of where the bridge is a continuation of the same color panel, so that silverish panel that is there now, in the same patterning and the same format that is there existing. There will be an addition right to the left of where Stu is pointing of vertical fins that help to screen some of the lighting that is coming into some of the public spaces there, as well as the offices above. We've studied this. The only point that you would actually see really any of this is if you turn to look backwards as you leave the airport. Most of this is shielded from daily view.
Stu, I'm not sure if you have it, but we have a nice rendering what this looks like in real time once it's completed that we've already submitted as, I believe, as part of the sketch plan. That might be nice to show.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, it's a picture. I'm trying to find it from the sketch plan, but if you can find that rendering, would be nice, I think, and show them what it's going to look like.
Give me just one
I have it
second
right
here.
Oh, I can pass it around too. I have it right here.
There we go.
Yeah, there it is, right
Larry,
there.
is this-
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay, yeah.
So this was this rendering was put together really before we finalized the site plan improvements on this corner. So this doesn't really show that the full extent of that truck pullout area and the walkway up to that roll top door that you see over here in the northwest corner of that building. But this really gives a good idea of what the building will look like.
Thank you.
So the piece that I didn't mention here was the glazing, obviously, that you see there just above the man and his child. That will be a view into the hold room, the right-sized hold room spaces that Larry was talking about earlier. So you'll actually have some sight lines into where you're walking after you get through TSA.
And the skywalk goes where?
That's an existing skywalk that goes to the second floor of the garage. That's already in place.
So the only piece that will be that is altered there is the piece just to the left of that, where we're basically going to match the architecture that's already there, and keep that as consistent to what's already seen.
Does this north terminal expansion also include a TSA checkpoint?
No, that's all taken care of with
You
the
got to go
terminal.
even further from TSA
Right,
to
yeah.
get to the north terminal.
Not bad when you compare to any other airport, though.
While looking at the Green Mountains the whole way.
However, I mean, in 2030, as in the master plan, we will be doing the same thing out the other end and get rid of that other current hallway, or it's a little bit better than this hallway, and doing the same thing, so you have just a linear terminal. So, okay.
And I'll add while yes, this is a long walk. We are doing some renovations that will help improve that walk. So we are thinking outside of this meeting, we are thinking of you as the passenger, and trying to help improve that. So hopefully it'll be more enjoyable.
Right. The budget does include, you see the blue, go back, Stu, to that last one. The blue to the left right there, that, from the terminal integration project, you're going to walk right by seating, potential seating and windows looking at the Green Mountain Range, the whole entire walk from the tip all the way to the other end. So that whole second floor will be renovated.
Yeah, that the third floor on the new building that we've been talking about, that is where the airport administration is going to be moving once the building is completed. And one of the reasons that came about was because right here on the left side of this kind of oddly shaped blue shape here, that's where the existing airport administrative space is, and it's kind of right smack in the middle of where we want passenger circulation to be. So the new building created this opportunity to move the airport administrative space away from there and really open this up. And a lot of the renderings that have been submitted for this project show that newly opened area, and not that skinny 7-foot wide hallway that runs through with no windows between the north and the south part of the existing building.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions before we move on? All right, number 5. I guess we're going to revisit this. The comment is, as discussed above, it is somewhat unclear what pedestrian impacts are proposed. Staff recommends revisiting this criterion when the above recommended proposed conditions plan is provided.
Right, so the criteria is that, some paraphrasing, for high quality pedestrian access. And Marty, I don't know if you want to take back over so you can show the staff comments as we go. Sorry.
I'll stop sharing.
So what do we need to discuss regarding 5, Marla?
Whether the pedestrian accommodations are adequate.
Oh, okay. Well, we know it's a long walk.
No, exterior.
Oh, exterior, okay. Comments about the pedestrian walk? And the connections?
So pretty much the only real major changes that are occurring is right at that corner of the building where you're going to have the truck turn in, and you're going to sort of pull the sidewalk in, have a crosswalk, and then connect back over to the rest of the major
Right,
pedestrian
and
sidewalk
as
area.
Stu explained, there won't be many trucks pulling up. It'll be what's currently happening on the other end of where the trucks pull into the pull off, and then they unload their trucks and they dolly things into the airport.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to, my comments aren't written. Number 6, staff recommends the board require the applicant to demonstrate a solar-ready zone in compliance with CBES prior to closing the hearing.
So for our response here, and I know Ducker is joining remotely, and he's our team member who's focused on this. The building is oriented properly and also includes low-sloped roofs in terms of meeting that C402.5 solar readiness requirements. Specifically, I'm quoting from that regulation, a solar-ready zone will be located on the roof of buildings and are oriented between 110 degrees and 270 degrees of true north, or have low slope roofs. Solar-ready zones will comply with these sections. We also, in reading that regulation, may fall under the exemption of, because we will have a building with a permanently installed on-site renewable energy system by including the geothermal wells as part of this project.
Okay, questions? Number 7, staff recommends the board direct the applicant to provide the determination on whether EV-capable spaces are required under the CBES, and if so, provide an assessment of the required number of EV-ready standards for the new building and compare this number to the number of EV charging spaces provided.
So we can give a summary of what we have currently. The airport currently has 6 EV charging parking spaces in the parking garage. We have 1 EV parking space in front of the terminal, and we also have 2 airside EV charging spaces. I know Ducker is on the line. Do you have anything further to add in terms of CBES requirements? In terms of the total number of EV parking spaces?
No, I do not. To make sure that can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just have to, my microphone's over here. No, I don't have anything to add to that, Jackie.
I have a question about what airside EV parking is. What's airside?
That's on the, we have the airside is where the airfield is, where the runways are, where the commercial planes pull up. All that is the air side. So on air side, we have switched our operations and some of our maintenance fleet to electric. They're F-150 Lightnings, and we also have a Mustang for administrative use. So we have 2 chargers, one at maintenance and one at operations, because we have operations vehicles that are electric now too.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
So the criteria is that electric vehicle charging is required, or electric capable spaces are required by the CBES. The question is, does this building trigger that requirement of the CBES?
So Ducker is our point of contact for that, and so we need to look into that further to confirm that. So that's something that we could provide as supplemental to this, as part of a condition, if you were open to that, Marla.
So I think that's the board's call. And going back to the solar ready zone, it sounds like you were interested in potentially looking into. I guess that sort of gets to it in staff comment number 8, right?
Right.
You were going to look into whether the alternative compliance was an option. The board needs to decide whether they will allow these things to be conditions of approval, or whether they have to be decided before closing the hearing. So what additional background can I give you to help understand the question?
I think we put an asterisk on these and see how far we get.
Okay.
If we get through the rest of the comments and then loop back.
Okay.
Others.
Yeah, you also have an opportunity to look into that because we're not closing the hearing.
Okay, let's do number 8 then. This standard goes on to provide some reductions and an alternative compliance pathway if the applicant seeks to pursue it. Staff recommends the board ask the applicant to review this section and determine whether they will meet the standard by providing an on-site photovoltaic system as described above, or whether they will seek reduction prior to closing the hearing. Specific determination of compliance to the installed system with the solar-ready zone can be a condition to be addressed prior to issuance of a zoning permit.
So just to follow up from what we were discussing, that we may fall under the exemption of a building with a permanently installed on-site renewable energy system. And that's the route that we would be taking because we would have the geothermal wells as part of the project.
Okay. Questions?
Well, you say you may fall under the exemption.
It's
what
listed
additional-
as an exemption. It's listed as an exemption.
Right.
So we were
But
just
what do
looking from
staff like? What do you need, and what do they need to submit to go beyond may and will? Like that. They
Who
will
determines that?
They need to see if they can meet the required calculations with the
Okay.
geothermal that they have.
So at the continuance period, you'll be verifying that and submit. Okay.
So basically, what the board has been requiring for these solar, because this standard is not new, what the board has been requiring is at the site plan level, make a decision as to what you are going to do, and then demonstrate your math, show your math before the zoning permit. So that the condition can be, provide the solar, or the condition can be provide the calcs demonstrating you meet it in another way, because the determination has sort of been that it's too open to say provide either either the solar or an alternative system. That's too broad a condition. So I think it's important for them to get to the point of saying, we're headed this direction, even if they don't have the final answer. And I think that the final answer being later is specifically, and this would apply to the EV charging too, because there's a lot of architectural work that needs to go into determining, the exact layout of that solar system. Similarly for the EV system, there's a lot of MEP work that needs to go into it. But making the decision on what you're going to do is the board has decided in the past that needs to happen now, and then actually doing the math can happen later.
Okay.
So Marla, just to clarify in terms of both the EV spaces and the solar readiness, those could both be conditions where we would show the math by the zoning
If you
permit.
can make a determination on whether the CVs requires the EV spaces now.
I see, yeah.
And whether you're going to put in solar or go with an alternative compliance now. We don't need you to show your work now. But I don't know how much that saves you, because I'm not the one doing the MEP work on this project.
Right.
Okay.
So, what do we need to decide regarding this?
We need the applicant to say, this is the direction we want to go. We want to go geothermal, so
And
we're
they
going to
can
go.
tell us that next time.
Yeah, because we're having another
Okay.
meeting, right?
Great.
So that when we go to the next step, that's the direction they're going.
Okay.
Right? Not, we're going to flip, right? That's not an option.
Perfect, okay. All right, let's move on to number 9. Staff recommends the board require the applicant to provide an assessment of existing trips and increased trips based on the planned capacity of the proposed North Concourse terminal expansion. Concourse.
And I think we talked about this a little bit during the master plan review, that we will be drafting a trip memo that we can include based on that increase.
All right, 10, staff supports the trips being considered on a master plan basis. However, staff also supports TDM being applied to a phase-by-phase basis if that is the most appropriate strategy for this particular master plan.
So I guess I didn't phrase this super well, but if you look at the actual block from the LDR above that, the DRB at their discretion may declare multiple buildings that are part of a single parcel, application, master plan, or master plan phase to be a single entity for the purposes of calculating TDM. So the board needs to decide if, so TDM is, as Paul sort of explained earlier, it's reducing the effective trips by providing alternative transportation options. So the board can either say do this on a holistic master plan level or do it on a phase by phase basis. So we wanted to affirm that you guys were okay with them doing their TDM on a phase by phase basis because the phases are so different from one another. Okay.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, okay, good. All right, number 11. We're on page 11 now, number 11. We need, Marla has provided a table, and we need you to fill that in, please, with information about bicycles and parking.
So we included a page that has the chart filled in. Stu, did you want to walk through that?
Sure. Let me reshare again here.
Well, I think everybody has it in front of them. Is that?
Well, there's
Oh, do
people
they? Okay.
attending remotely though.
Right.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let me bring it up then.
Oh, good, okay.
Okay, can you see that?
Mhm.
Okay, so the top table is basically the calculations of what is required. And some of this is historical, based on going all the way back to, and I believe the first project that this was done for was the QTA. And that calculation included the existing terminal building, the FAA building, which is where the tower is, the QTA, which was the original plan that was put together for the bike summary. Then we modified that for the terminal integration project, which this board saw about 3 years ago, and then now our BTV North terminal. So we've got our calculations, and this is all based on square footage. And so what this shows is that we are required to have 59 short-term bike parking spaces and 12 long-term bike parking spaces. So we did an inventory on site, and it appears that we are lacking a bit in the long-term spaces, quite a bit actually in the long-term spaces. I think we're currently, I think currently we have 50. I think currently we have 53 short-term. We do need 6 more, and that note doesn't look like that note got onto here. But we currently have 53. We will need 6 more to meet the requirement. And as far as the long-term spaces, we only have 2 out there. We have 1 bike locker out there currently, which has space for 2 bicycles. We need to have 12. So we will need to provide 10 new for this North Terminal project.
I don't think, Marty, correct me if I'm wrong, they have to apply it retroactively. But if those projects were actually, I guess the rental car facility, the TIP, and the North Terminal are all under the regulations that would have required it.
Can
Yeah, I'm not sure why there's only 1 bike locker out there.
There was more. Isn't there more than one? There
Well,
really
we
was.
have the ability to store them in the QTA for one. There was places in the QTA. However, I'd have to go back, Marla, but I also remember, and we can go back to the QTA, where I think rather than just, I think at that time we needed to just move forward with future construction, and we went back and provided enough spaces for the entire terminal as it was built. So we've got, have already gone way beyond what was required at that time. But, we'll make these adjustments. So
Okay.
but I have
I
to go
was
back.
sure there were 3, whatever. I was
Yeah.
sure there were 3 in the garage at one point.
We'll have to look at our certificate of occupancies that we have pictures of and all that.
I have a photo from this afternoon, and there's only 1.
Yeah, I mean
So,
yeah, it's
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe they were put in. I mean, it
No.
seems like a weird thing to steal, but
no,
maybe
they
one of them
didn't
stole that.
disappear.
I don't know.
We have not taken them out. So we
Okay,
we can
anything
go
else
back
from
and we
the
can do a
board
history on
before we move on?
I have a curiosity question.
Yeah.
Who are are the requirements established on the basis of square footage or use or?
Both.
Oh, all right. So who are the projected users of the bike racks? Presumably not the passengers.
See, that's the issue. We have all these spaces, but there might be 2 bikes in there. So, I mean, I understand Marla's comment in the past, we're looking to the future, but nobody's going to come in with their luggage on a bicycle.
Well, it's not. But I can see another use. I mean, how many employees are typically at the airport?
Right. Yeah, we have a lot of employees.
Do you know how many ballpark?
No, I can't guess at it, Frank. Sorry.
Stu, you know? Nobody knows?
I mean,
We have photos from this afternoon. And there was
no,
about
Stu,
five-
we're talking about the number of employees at the.
Oh, employees. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, Frank, we can get you that number. And everybody, we encourage biking and all that, but it's hardly used because of our use.
Because it's a long walk from south of the, it's a long walk from south of the vehicle entrance to where they have to go to work.
It is, yep.
For what it's
Well,
worth,
that's a criticism. in
members
case
of
you
the
didn't
planning
get it.
department bike to the airport fairly regularly. Multiple members of the planning department use the bike racks at the airport.
I did just fly to Denver last Thursday, and I biked from here after work.
Yeah.
Really?
And it was 19 minutes from when I shut my laptop to when I was through
You
TSA.
travel light then.
That's true. Yeah, just one carry on.
But it's not just Marty. It's not just Marty.
And this is people who are flying out.
Other people in our department, present company included, have biked to the airport. Yep.
Okay.
To fly out?
Impressive.
Wow.
4 a.m. Yeah. Okay. Number 12. Staff recommends the board require the applicant. This is about lighting, exterior lighting, including photometric drawings and lighting. We need that information, please. I'm sorry.
We included a photometric plan with this packet. It's
Okay,
the first
thank
one
you.
that's being shown.
All right.
We're adding 3 lighting fixtures along the north side and 1 on the west side of the terminal. These lighting fixtures will be very similar to or the exact same as what we just installed for the TIP project. So they'll meet all the lighting requirements in terms of downcast and shielded, etc.
Okay. Thank you. And then the last comment is about the fence. We need details, please, and materials, description of materials for the fence.
Right, so that's that last plan sheet in your packet, and
Stu's pulling it up.
oh, Stu's pulling it up.
Yep.
It might not be the last page.
Okay, so yeah, I can speak to this just quickly. So there is an existing, I think it's kind of a faux wrought iron fence, and you see the photo there in the top left of this plan. That's the existing fence as it is today. So that will be taken down and relocated. If we can reuse what's there, we will. If we need to buy new in the same style, we will go that route instead. But that will be maintained, and we'll follow a new alignment as I've shown down here with this red revision cloud here in the lower left part of the plan. So that will be the most visible fence. And then as you look eastbound through this gap between the FAA building and our new building, that's when we get to the existing, it will be a new airport security perimeter fence, which is the standard 8-foot chain link fence with 3 strands of barbed wire on top. And that is something, I believe we talked about that at the last master plan meeting. I think we talked about fencing quite a bit. So that will be put right in this area here along the east side of that gap between the 2 buildings.
So the staff, before the staff comment, there's a comment that says the LDRs prohibit a fence with spikes on the top. How will you address that?
Is that
but then
referring
it
to
says
the-
historically we're exempt. Okay, never mind.
Like barbed wire.
No. Okay, got it. I understand it's for security purposes. Okay, that brings us to the end of the staff comments. We know we're going to continue, but before we address that motion, let's see if there are any members of the public who would like to make comments. There are certainly none here. Are there any online, Marty? Okay. All right, then I think we are ready to figure out a date.
So similar to the conditional use, I would put it back on the applicant. The things that you need to do a little bit of work on are the renewable energy and EV spaces. How much time do you need to get those things figured out?
That's definitely within Jacob's court, but I would think that within the week would be reasonable before the holiday. Does that sound good to you, Stu and Ducker? Okay.
Yeah.
So we could be at the next DRB.
So we need stuff 2 weeks before the meeting to get it reviewed. So I can review this stuff, but I can't review stuff that I don't have yet.
When's the next meeting, Marla?
So we could, the timeline would work for December 17th. And then we would need your stuff around the 3rd.
Does that work for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to conclude this hearing and, continue this hearing. Let me rephrase that. I would entertain a motion. No, let me just make the motion. I will make a motion. I move that we continue MP 2404 and SB 2441 to December 17th, 2024. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Any comments, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? We will see you back here on December 17th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have some minutes. I don't have the rest of the agenda here. We have some minutes. November 5th. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from November 5th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Are you not paying attention? Any discussion about the minutes? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, and other business. So we're out of here early.
So would you like to call the meeting ended?
I would like to call the meeting ended.